The firearm space is interesting. There's a lot of knowledge, there's a lot of experience, and there's also a lot of strong opinions. And most of them sound very certain, but as someone who's relatively new to all of this, I started to notice something. Some of the things that I thought were right when I started don't actually seem to be helping me improve. Not because I think I know better, but because I've been shooting more, making mistakes, and paying attention to what's actually working. So in this video, I want to share a few opinions that I've developed along the way, some of which might be a little bit unpopular. I share this not as an expert, but as someone going from that in-between stage, from curious to capable. And if you've been shooting for years, you might completely disagree with these, and that's totally fair. But if you're newer, somewhere in the middle like me, then these might resonate more than you expect, especially if you're still figuring things out like I am. So my first opinion, I think that fun matters more than people might admit. I think that when a lot of people first get into shooting, there's this subtle shift that happens. You go from this is exciting to this needs to be optimized. And again, there's nothing wrong with taking it seriously, but I think sometimes we skip over something really important. If it's not enjoyable, you're not going to stick with it. Some of my best range days weren't the most technical or the most efficient. They were the ones where I actually wanted to be there, where I was having fun, where I wasn't overthinking every rep, where I wasn't frustrated with every mistake, and where I could just shoot, observe, and adjust. And ironically, that's where I improved the most, because I kept coming back. And I don't think you can improve at something you quietly stop enjoying. I think consistency gets talked about a lot in this space, but not necessarily in a realistic way. People always say train more, which is valid and really important, but they don't ever talk about what makes you actually want to train more. And for me, fun is a huge part of that. All right, number two, I think possibly my most spicy opinion. I think gear is really overrated, but it's still fun as heck. This one took me a minute to understand, because when you first get into this space, gear feels like everything. You start noticing differences, you start comparing setups, you start thinking, if I just upgrade that one thing, then I'll be better. And sometimes there is a little bit of truth to that, but I think it's easy to overestimate how much gear actually moves the needle. Most of the real progress that I've made is from reps, not from upgrades, from seeing what I'm doing wrong, from filming on myself, from slowing down and being intentional. It's a lot easier to buy progress than it is to earn it. But the thing is, only one of those actually works. And at the same time, gear is part of what makes this enjoyable. It's fun, it can be personal, it can be expressive. So I'm not anti-gear. I just think it helps to keep it in the right place. Gear should support your development, not be a substitute for it. Okay, so number three, you don't need to justify everything with utility. And this might sound a little bit contradictory to the previous Gear is Overrated section, but I'll explain. So there's something that I didn't realize that I was doing at first. Every time I liked a new piece of gear or wanted to try something new, I felt like I needed a reason, a practical justification, something that made it make sense. And I think a lot of that comes from the culture. There's a strong emphasis on purpose, preparedness, and real world application, which is definitely important. But I also feel like it creates this pressure where everything feels like it needs to be defended. And a lot of the time it doesn't. Sometimes you just like something because it's interesting. Crazy concept, right? Or because it makes the whole shooting experience more enjoyable. Or maybe because, and I think this is underrated, it motivates you to get out and shoot. And that's not a bad thing at all. If everything has to be justified, then eventually you just stop exploring. Not everything needs to be optimized for a specific scenario. Sometimes they can just exist because they add value to your experience. Okay, number four. I think this one is also a little spicy. I think that aesthetics matter more than people want to admit. This one kind of ties into everything else because a lot of people say that aesthetics don't matter, and I believe that they actually really do. People care about how their setup looks. They care about finishes, colors, details. And honestly, think about this. If aesthetics didn't matter, then nobody would probably post their setup. I don't think it's shallow at all. I think it's just human. We're naturally drawn to things that look good to us. And guess what? When you like the way your gear looks and feels, you're probably going to engage with it more. You take more pride in it. You spend more time with it. You enjoy the process more, which again leads back to consistency. Now, I'm not saying that aesthetics should come before function, but I'm not saying they should be dismissed either. They definitely play a role, even if it's a subtle one. And number five, I think this is something that everyone can benefit from. I think that humility and open-mindedness are very underrated in this space. This has probably been the most important shift for me because when you're new, you feel like you need to kind of catch up to everyone. To have solid opinions, to know what you're talking about, to sound confident. But the more time I spend around the space, the more I realize how much I have to learn, and also how valuable it is to just stay open, to listen more than you speak, to ask questions, and to have the courage to say, I don't know yet. Because the moment you feel like you figured everything out is the moment that you stop improving. And I'd rather be someone who's always learning than someone who feels like they have all of the answers. And I think that mindset is the mindset that takes you from curious to capable. So, like I said, these aren't rules at all. These are just observations that I've made from where I'm at right now. And because I'm a newer shooter, they'll probably change over time. But right now, these are the things that have made shooting more enjoyable and more sustainable. And truthfully, more honest. So I'm really curious, what's a gun culture related opinion that you have that most people might disagree with? Leave them in the comments below. And if you're also like me in that figuring it out phase, going from curious to capable, then subscribe. I'd love to have you here. I'm documenting the process as I go. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Bridge Tactical, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.